Welcome again, everyone. Good evening here from Utah, and good day to you in Singapore and Brunei, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Australia, and wherever else you might be. I know sometimes we have some people listening from some of our other markets, and we welcome them to be here with us. But we are excited about today's topic. It's one that is a little mysterious, and that's something that I've done on purpose because this is a very important topic. And I wanted to create some mystery to hopefully have a lot of people tuning in so they could soak up this information. You know, just this summer, I was reading a book while locked down there in Singapore. And the book that I was reading was all about calisthenics. Right? So it was a book written by some of the top calisthenic trainers in the world. Right? These are guys that have flown all over the world training people how to get strong, look great without a gym, right? No equipment, just using your body weight. And it was very interesting to read this book because these are the kind of guys that, to be honest, hate supplements, right? They're that type that believes, hey, if you want to be healthy, you should have to put in all the work to achieve it. They're like, hey, if you really want to have that type of body, if you want to look that way, if you want to be that strong, well, then you can get it without any help, and you should. And so the whole time I was reading this book, you know, the exercises were really interesting, most of them too hard for me to do. But I just kept thinking how interesting it was that they refused to use supplements. And then we got to the end of the book, and there was some info about diet and eating. And what I thought was very funny was in that section, they admitted that there is one supplement that you should take, right? And it's so funny to me because the whole time they're talking about how people don't eat them. And then they admitted, well, we actually do take this. We do take this supplement. And that supplement that they take, despite the fact that they spent a whole book talking about how you don't need it, and this is a theme I've seen many places. There's many people who will profess to not need supplements, the tools that we provide that help someone to achieve these goals when they don't have 4 hours a day to work out, right? The people that say they don't like those tools will still recommend to use this supplement because it's just that important. And our special guest today, Dr. Grant, a local expert in Australia, although really he's we're borrowing him from our friends in Australia, right? He is going to be our special guest that's going to teach us what is this supplement, why is it sometimes considered the most important one, and how does Unicity meet this need to fill this gap for people. So I'll turn the time over to Dr. Grant. We're very excited to have him here, and let's tune in to see what it is he's going to talk to us about.
Thank you, Sam. It's great to be here. Yeah, thanks everyone, and welcome this morning. And a big welcome to and thank you for joining. So I'm actually here to talk to you about, as Sam mentioned, a particular supplement. I'm not actually sure if it has been revealed yet or if you already have an inkling of what it is, but I wanted to give you some information and have a bit of a game so that you could guess exactly what type of supplement I'm talking about tonight. This morning, tonight in Utah. So I'll just share my screen with you all. So I actually wanted to pose a question to you today before we actually talk through the reasons of why this could possibly be the most important supplement. So Unicity Science, of course, is really dedicated to making life better, and we've developed a range of scientifically proven and scientifically backed products to really support metabolic health. So this question that I'm really posing you today is a question about this supplement that can really help with your metabolic health. And as Sam mentioned, even people that are the most discerning of supplements actually consider this one quite important. So this supplement is actually very important for metabolic health, but also immune health, and it is also linked to such areas as supporting heart health, cognitive health, and joint health, also development, so particularly childhood development, and even linked to promoting the way we actually feel. So I'm not sure if this has really given you some inspiring clues to what this supplement is about. But I just wanted to give you some background about why this supplement is so important and why metabolic health is so important to us here at Unicity. So of course, as we all know, one of the most important aspects of human physiology is metabolic health. And this really allows the body to perform at its peak performance, allowing it to perform all those necessary functions that we really require in each and every one of our daily lives. But metabolism is about all those chemical reactions that are occurring in the body and why these are so important. And this supplement, as I'm going to outline today, and hopefully you can work out which one I'm talking about, it's really imperative for helping those daily chemical reactions that are occurring with your metabolic health. So this is the first clue. So interestingly, that I mentioned that this supplement is so connected with many aspects of our health, particularly our metabolic health. But at the cellular level, our bodies cannot actually produce this supplement. So we as mammals cannot technically produce this ourselves. So this actually makes it very important because this actually means that it's classified as essential. And what essential actually means is that we must obtain it through dietary sources, which also includes supplementation. And this is why it's really such an important nutrient that we require, because our bodies cannot produce it without having that dietary intake. And this is the second clue. And of course, the next clue that I'm going to refer to, and this one might actually give it away, the modern interest in this supplement actually grew when it was observed that certain diets that were specifically high in fish had possible associations with better health outcomes, such as cardiovascular health. And it was actually found after analyzing these diets that it was suggested that this was because they were eating high amounts, so wait for it, of omega-3 fatty acids. And these are found in marine sources like oily fish, algae, and cod liver. Now, those studies on those particular dietary patterns were done back in the 1970s. And these large-scale epidemiological studies actually revealed the possible benefits of dietary omega-3s. And it was actually noticed, which was very interesting, that there was a very possible link and this trend occurring that lower reports of cardiovascular disease were being reported amongst these people that were eating these high amounts of dietary omega-3s in relation to their industrialized nation counterparts who at the time were not consuming as much fish oils and omega-3s in their diet. So is this the most important supplement? Well, it's actually a recommended supplement, and the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations actually recommends a dose of at least 250 milligrams per day of EPA and DHA for adults. So we'll actually talk about the differences and the types of omega-3s and the importance of why they are really imperative and helpful for your general health and well-being. And the American Health Association actually also recommends a daily intake of about 1 gram of EPA plus DHA for patients with known cardiovascular risks. And this actually helps to lower the incidences and causes of cardiovascular risk in later life. So this supplement, as I actually mentioned, must be obtained from the diet because it is an essential fatty acid, and we source omega-3s from the consumption of high-quality food sources. But unfortunately, in these modern times, poor dietary choices can actually affect the amount of omega-3s we obtain. And this can actually change the metabolism and our immune systems in our body, because poor dietary choices are a significant factor in the challenges to health globally. And I actually just wanted to point out this fact, it's quite an interesting fact that 88% of adults are actually considered metabolically unfit. Now, this study actually came out of the United States, but it found almost 90% of all adults are considered metabolically unfit. And I really wanted to highlight this point because I'm actually going to link it into how metabolic health and immune health are actually very interconnected. And of course, with globalization and the modern diet actually being increasingly consumed the world over, this is actually becoming a problem globally and is one of the significant factors to our global health as a human population. But if we think about what makes those 88% of adults metabolically unfit, and we compare this to what is considered metabolically fit, so this is the healthy 12% of that population. And this study actually defined metabolic health as being healthy in 5 key areas. So we talk about this a lot at Unicity, and it really helps to understand why metabolic health is so important. So of course, blood glucose levels are normal, blood pressure is normal, our waist circumference is in the healthy range, and then we have healthy LDL cholesterol levels. So these are a normal ratio between our LDL and HDL cholesterol. And this is what is considered metabolically healthy. But of course, if any of these characteristics are actually in the wrong direction, so some of them are high when they should be low, or some are very low when they should be much higher, this is actually the definition of the metabolic syndrome. So this is actually when we're at that higher risk of developing chronic metabolic diseases. And this is how I wanted to link in metabolic health with immune health, because poor metabolic health is actually related to poor immune health. So a healthy immune system and metabolic health are very interconnected. And this is actually a very serious and important link, and one that we often overlook or we don't really consider with our general health, because diet is so imperative and related to this in allowing us to have good immune health and good metabolic health. And this can actually also be further escalated when we have one of the issues that are part of the metabolic syndrome. So some of those issues that I mentioned in the previous slide. And research actually shows us that unhealthy individuals suffering from poor metabolic health can actually have an immune system that is not functioning as it should be, and is in this constant state of low-grade inflammation. And of course, uncontrolled inflammation in the body is not a good thing. And this is actually a sign of a disrupted and ineffective immune system. So of course, our immune systems are very important, but too much inflammation is actually detrimental to our own body tissues. So that can cause cellular damage to our cells. So what is actually causing this? So one of the big problems with the relationship between poor metabolic health and poor immune health is actually that we're eating a lot of highly processed, sugar-dense foods. And in these modern times, we all love these very high calorific, these foods that make us feel really good, but we actually aren't giving ourselves the opportunity to not have this constant intake of simple sugars, because a range of the foods that are so easily accessible to us are very high in these sugars. So we're actually choosing very nutrient poor, high calorie foods. So we're not obtaining all the nutrients we actually need. And this is causing our bodies to become metabolically inflexible. So it's actually changing the metabolism within our bodies. And this actually increases the likelihood of us gaining weight, but it also gives us this uncontrolled, chronic, low-grade inflammation in our bodies. And this is really what the point I wanted to make about linking metabolic health and immune health with omega-3s and their supplementation. And you actually might have never considered this, But if you actually think about the food that we eat, it can actually dramatically alter inflammation in our bodies. So of course, as I mentioned, too little inflammation and we have no immunity. But if we have too much inflammation, it's actually very detrimental to our metabolic health. And this is because it can actually cause damage to our own cells and tissues. And this is what we don't want to have. And another way to control inflammation is actually to control the amount of high sugary meals and snacks. And I know we all love them, as I mentioned, but too much of anything is actually not a good thing. So you might have remembered that old mantra that your parents used to tell you, too much of anything is not a good thing for you. It's something that my parents would always say, you can't have too much of that. You're doing too much of this. But this study actually looked at people with insulin resistance, and they found that those people with given different types of macronutrients, so either carbohydrates, proteins, or fats, and they looked at how the immune levels in their body actually changed. So one was high protein, as I mentioned, one was high in fat, and one was high in carbohydrates. So this was a high sugar dense meal. And this high sugar dense meal had this distinctive adverse effect on immune responses. So in other words, inflammation in the body actually rose. It actually skyrocketed after these individuals ate this very high calorific meal. And the reason I wanted to highlight this particular study for people that were having issues with metabolic health, so these are insulin resistant individuals, and the relationship between what diet can actually cause this low grade inflammation. So this is actually quite a novel field of research. But the intake of omega-3s, and specifically the EPA, so that eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA, so we see this a lot, EPA, DHA. So DHA is the docosahexaenoic acid. So these are difficult to pronounce, so it's just EPA, DHA. It's a very simple way to remember it. These essential fatty acids from fish oils actually help the immune system by acting as signaling molecules that regulate inflammation differently in the body. So this actually helps the body to create these important inflammatory suppressive molecules called resolvins. So these are very important because a large part of the anti-inflammatory effects that we see in the body is because EPA and DHA can be used as these building blocks for these metabolites that we call resolvins. And you might be like, what are these resolvins? So resolvins are this group of molecules that are derived from these omega-3 fatty acids, and they are part of this biochemical pathway in the body. And this actually allows inflamed tissue in the body, such as joints. So we get that inflamed joint after excessive exercise or from overuse. It actually helps it to return to its normal process once a regular inflammatory response is over. So it helps regulate inflammation in the body. And scientific data actually heavily suggests that resolvins, so those metabolites produced from the intake of those omega-3s, EPA and DHA, actually have this potential to be very potent and important mediators of inflammatory pain. Now, chronic inflammation is actually a feature of a large number of painful inflammatory diseases, such as arthritis, lower back pain, and inflammatory bowel disease. And there's many others that this immense metabolite is actually involved in suppressing their inflammation. And I was actually at a recent conference, and it was online, of course, because of safe distancing and the COVID pandemic. But they were actually talking about topics on overall health, immune health, but also gut health. But I really found this interesting that the keynote speaker actually mentioned that chronic inflammation can actually be a factor in almost all conditions that lead to disease. So regulating and having proper inflammation in the body and really supporting your immune health is an important factor in our general health and well-being. And of course, these conditions can cause pain and suffering for so many, and not to mention the link between the high healthcare costs and the high socioeconomic costs involved in managing this range of diseases and conditions. And this is actually what really sets Omega Life 3 Resolv apart. And I just wanted to give you some background about how resolvins actually work in the body. So if you actually think about inflammation as this little fire occurring at the site of injury. So if you have a point of injury and you get all these inflammation cells actually come to the site to really resolve that. So they might be trying to remove pathogenic material, or they'll be trying to heal the process. And this is actually like this little fire. But inflammation that is not well regulated can actually turn into this large fire. And this is much like a bushfire occurring. So this inflammation is spreading through that site. And this is what really causes that uncomfortable pain that we have at joints and in tissues, because we're having this uncontrolled inflammation. So there's too much inflammation at that site. And this really causes us a lot of pain and discomfort. But of course, EPA and DHA can actually be used to produce these resolvins. So these resolvins are like these rain clouds that come in and they actually help suppress that immune response. So once the immune response is over, and it's not necessary to have that kind of inflammation at that site. So particularly if you think about pathogens have been removed and contained, the inflammation at that site is not required anymore. And EPA and DHA is very much involved in producing these resolvins and helping that site of inflammation be suppressed and return to its normal stance. And this is why Omega Life 3 Resolv is actually very good at producing these resolvins. This formula has actually been uniquely formulated to boost the body's ability to produce these resolvins. So of course, EPA and DHA are very important factors in producing these resolvins, but this formula actually helps optimize that production. So you're getting an optimal boost of that resolvin production that really helps suppress that inflammatory response in the body. And this is why it's such a great formulation and really differentiates it from other omega-3 supplements, because the recommended intake is actually, and the average intake, sorry, for omega-3s is actually quite low in our normal diets. But resolvins are very important inflammatory regulators, and they help to restore and suppress that normal immune function and response after that injury, as I mentioned. And this can actually prevent that ongoing pain that can often be an acute effect of increased inflammation. But Omega Life 3, of course, is optimized. So the formula is this patented formulation that actually helps to assist with this anti-inflammatory pathways in the body. And this is because it has been widely appreciated that low-level inflammation in the body can actually be a cause of pain and stress on the body, even without a distinct link to a specific condition. And of course, uncontrolled inflammation is commonly associated with tissue damage in the body, and this can be the site of pain, like when we have those sore and stiff joints. And the reason that Omega Life 3 Resolv is a superb omega-3 supplement is because it actually contains this high levels of the omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA. So with 1,000 milligrams of EPA and 500 milligrams of DHA, and this optimized ratio and high intake formula actually helps in reducing that inflammation in joints and helps to actually lower blood cholesterol. And this EPA to DHA ratio actually may help to lower inflammatory risk factors and support your immune health. Because inflammation in the body can actually be induced by other factors such as exercise and stress. But because omega-3s can act by possibly suppressing certain chemical processes in the body, and these are actually involved in the generation of pain and inflammation. And during times of exercise, these can actually be exacerbated. And this is because of joint stress and joint fatigue. So as Sam mentioned, some of these people that are very dismissive of supplements in general actually really enjoy this omega-3 because of the benefits they have through this exercise and relief of pain. And this can actually be because of repeated mechanical stress on our joints through overuse and subsequent joint wear. And this is actually very typical of sports people utilizing repetitive motions because they're trying to build their body mass, or they're exercising, or we're running. There's a very repetitive motion on our joints and movements. But there's more to just omega-3s than the resolving of pain. And omega-3s are actually very important to the central nervous system and to optimize brain function. And I just wanted to point out some really exciting facts about omega-3s and our cognitive function. So in the human brain, so DHA actually accounts for 10 to 15% of the total fatty acids in both males and females. So this is actually not very surprising that reduced dietary supply of omega-3s to the brain is actually associated with many brain symptoms, including low mood. And of course, omega-3s is so important to that cognitive function because of this high utilization of omega-3s in brain tissue. But also the importance is actually at the cellular level. And I really wanted to talk about this. So following consumption of omega-3s, they actually incorporated into the cell membranes in all tissues of the body. So you can think of this as like the cell is like this motor, the engine of the body. So we have multiple cellular engines in our body. And this actually helps with this intake of omega-3s. So whether the source of these omega-3 fatty acids is actually from fish or fish oil, supplements, or food products fortified with the appropriate amount of omega-3 fatty acids, there's actually changes in the cellular membrane. So that in the cell structure supporting the cell. And this actually can occur within a few days of consumption of these omega-3 fatty acids. And omega-3 is actually very important to certain tissues. And this is actually like the retina and the brain that I mentioned are particularly enriched in these fatty acids. So about 30% of all fatty acids in the retina are actually omega-3 fatty acids. So they're very important for eye health. And the fact that these and other cells have developed this cellular machinery to incorporate these dietary components into the cell suggests that fatty acids are very important in their role to support proper cellular function. And also, interestingly, most cells in our body will actually accumulate omega-3 fatty acids. And these are in amounts that are far greater than our dietary intake. And the importance of this is actually that these fatty acids are actually linked to our average daily intake of these essential fatty acids. So supplementation with EPA and DHA and the dietary change that this actually brings actually has this supportive and preventative help in the cellular mechanism. And this is because it alters the ratio of other types of fatty acids in the body. So supplementation with EPA and DHA, such as that in the omega-3 Life Resolve, actually helps change the ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s in the cell. And this actually appears to be associated with the protective benefits that we see with longer term supplementation. And the reason this is so important is because it helps with that suppression of immune responses. It has those anti-inflammatory properties. It also helps with that cellular function because it isn't relying on other sources of fatty acids to undertake that function. And it really optimizes the cellular function. So is this the most important supplement of all? So metabolic inflammation is actually a very new area of research. And when we have deviations in metabolic and inflammatory pathways, they actually could contribute to longer term issues with metabolic health. And metabolic issues such as those arising from weight gain and obesity, as I mentioned, can actually promote this low-grade inflammation in the body. So this is an immune system that is not functioning correctly because of the differentiation in our metabolic health. And this interconnection between metabolic health and immune health is why omega-3s are such an important regulator in the body's normal response to injury and inflammation. So as I mentioned, if you have that low-grade inflammation in the body, so it's like that little fire that's just starting in the forest, and it can actually spread to other tissues and increase that pain, that stiffness. But the production of these resolvins that are metabolites of this intake of EPA and DHA that has been optimized with the omega-3 Life Resolv formula actually help suppress that inflammation that is not required in the body. So that low-grade inflammation that is a common cause of poor metabolic health. And this is why the two are so well connected with each other. Metabolic health and immune health are very important to your overall health and general well-being. So Omega Life 3 Resolv from Unicity really demonstrates that Unicity are committed to optimizing beneficial health supplements and are the leaders in metabolic health products. So we've taken this omega-3 supplement and really optimized it to produce this boost in resolvin production that really helps support your immune health and your metabolic health. And this is really why omega-3 Life Resolv actually is a better choice above other generic products because of the optimized formula for your body to produce these resolvins. And Unicity is really helping you to activate your optimal health. So thank you, everyone. And I hope I've got you really excited about these omega-3s that are such an important part of your health and your general well-being, and why this supplement is actually a leading supplement in the intake, and why people think of this supplement as something they would always consider as part of their dietary recommendations, and why it is recommended by so many groups and organizations for our general health and well-being. So thank you so much for listening this morning. And I hope I've got you really excited about the intake of omega-3s to support your health.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grant, for teaching us all that incredible information. I know that for me, omega-3, before we had the Resolv, and especially with that product, right, when it's available, this has always been in my top 3 products that I take most consistently, because you can't not run into articles about the amazing benefits of this product, how important it is. And there's so much more, right, that we can talk about. And I hope that a lot of you, right, who are looking for ways to help your communities, help the people in your networks to improve the quality of lives, picked up on how many opportunities to help this product alone has, right? How many of us know people that are suffering from nearly constant pain, or just those aches that they have? How many of us know people that are struggling to lose additional fat, who are metabolically unfit, who are concerned about their brain health and performance, who deal with depression, right? These are all problems that so many people deal with day to day, and that there are direct links between this supplement and improving those conditions. It's amazing. And so there's a lot of opportunities, and we also want to take advantage of having Dr. Grant here with us on this call. And so, like usual, we do want to take some time to give him some time to go through and answer some of the questions that people have. But I am going to ask Dr. Grant to try and focus on the questions related to the topic we've covered today. And so, there's some questions there about when Resolv will be available in certain countries. And so I don't expect you to know the answers to that one. All right, we're actually already looking into that for both the people that ask those questions. But as far as the questions that have come in or that are coming in related to the use of omega-3, Omega Life 3 or Omega Life 3 Resolv, and the benefits, anything of that, we would really appreciate you scrolling through that chat and seeing if you can help us answer some of those questions.
Yeah, that's not a problem. And I saw some about the intake of the 4 capsules and why not we don't have 1 capsule for intake. And this is really so we can optimize that intake of that EPA and that DHA. So when you take the 4 capsules, it actually really has that optimized formulation and those levels of EPA and DHA that we really require for that optimized resolvent production.
Yeah, definitely. And while Dr. Grant is looking at other questions, I'll just say that most days I will double that dosage. I'll take 4 in the morning and 4 in the evening. Because for me, it's just that important to make sure I'm not just getting what's recommended, but I'm getting all that my body needs.
And that's right. And there's also an interesting question here that low-grade inflammation in the body actually isn't always felt as pain. And that's actually correct. So we don't always know what is happening with inflammation in our body. And this is particularly relevant for the gut. So if you actually consider gut health and the environment that's happening in your gastrointestinal tract as food actually moves through this, you can consider this as like this hollow tube that from end to end. And as food moves through there, this interaction with the food, the bacteria that's actually in your gut as well, and your inflammatory responses. So this might not actually be revealed as pain to you, but having good immune responses in this environment is very much why omega-3s can actually help in supporting your immune system, even if pain is not a factor in that immune support. So it's one of those supplements that actually very supportive of cellular functions, even when we don't have those physical notices such as pain or inflammation. So it helps regulate the normal cellular function in the body. And actually, there's a question about when will Omega Life 3 Resolv be available in certain jurisdictions, but we do have the Omega Life, the Omega 3 product, our previous formulation, which actually is also high in EPA and DHA and has some of the ingredients that are in the Omega Life 3 Resolv product. So they can actually have some support in producing those resolvins. But this new formulation has been really optimized to boost that resolvin production. Oh, there's a question here about having Unimate and Resolv together for brain function. So the ways that Unimate actually works is it's a bit different to the Omega Life 3 Resolv. So Omega Life 3 Resolv is actually very important to provide some of those nutrients that are really important for that cellular health and normal functioning. But Unimate actually has this, they have these very special compounds that actually help with your focus and your concentration and your attention. So they actually can be supplemented together because they actually help that cognitive function and that brain function in really supporting you in your daily tasks. Oh, there's a question about how is Omega Life 3 Resolv optimized to produce more resolvins in the body? So Omega Life 3 has actually had these, so EPA and DHA, and when you think about I had that slide about the EPA and DHA can be like these building blocks to produce these resolvins, but there's actually different compounds in the body that actually help optimize this. So when you think about building a house, you don't just have the wood, you also have the nails, you have other materials that you require to really help produce those metabolites and that house that you need. So you can think about the formula being optimized in having these additional ingredients that help EPA and DHA produce those resolvins in the body. So it's like that added support and that added assistance when you need that extra help to produce these metabolites. I think that's
It looks like that we had one more question come in just recently from our friend Gerald Tan, who, his concern is that, there's articles out there talking about how too much fish-based products can result in having too much of heavy metals. And so, what assurances do we have, or how can we feel confident that the Omega Life 3 products are safe from, giving us those harmful substances that you might find in farmed fish or eating other types of fish products?
And I think this is part of the beauty of supplementation, because you know what you're taking, so you know that you're getting that EPA and that DHA at the levels you require to really optimize that resolvin production. So in your dietary choices, if you have a diet high in fish, you're not really sure the actual micronutrients that you're obtaining from that. So those sources could be very high in heavy metals, but with the supplementation of EPA and DHA, it's a very safe way to take these nutrients that you need for this resolvin production.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering all those questions, Dr. Grant. I know that a lot of people really appreciate that. It's so great to have access to, these great scientific minds like yourself and be able to bounce questions off you in real time. It's really great for us. And so thank you for giving your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, we will have you as often as we can get you, but we don't want to do it too much or else you'll get sick of us. But thank you again, everyone, for joining in with us today, for asking your questions. And if you had a question we missed, like always, please send it in directly to our product trainers. And if they need extra help, right, they can also have access to Dr. Grant and the rest of our scientific team. And so please don't be strangers to that. And then also we're looking forward next week. All right, so next week, we haven't announced it yet, but the product training will be about our new wow, that's a hard word to say, chlorospirulina 2.0 product, and how this is just not just a superfood, but you could say a super duper food. And it's coinciding as well with the launch of this product in Singapore and the NFR launch in some other markets. So this is going to be a great event next week. We're looking forward to see you there. But thank you once more to Dr. Grant, and have a great day, all of you.